Welcome everybody. Welcome to a Sankarshan Joshi trip. And I'm Vaishakh Dutt, a recurring guest on this very special podcast. It's the 25th episode, and Sankarshan sucks at intros, so I'm doing this for him as a friend. I think it's a right favor, and it's my duty and responsibility to do this for him. But it's a special episode. 25 episodes in. He's been doing it for a while. He's put in a lot of effort for the same, and I'm going to take some weight off of his shoulders and I will conduct this podcast for him. And let's see what we talk about. And welcome your host, but the guest for this episode. Give it up for Sankarshan Joshi, everybody.
Woo! This feels so weird, but thank you so much, Vaishak. Like you took you put in extra
How,
efforts into like making this special. Like it really means a lot. Thank you so much.
A Sankarshan Joshi trip.
yeah, how was my intro? Rate it out of 10.
You always have it in you, Vaishak. Like that's what I'm like most jealous of. Like I've been asking you to like start your own podcast, even with BBB when you do. It's you who introduce it, right? So I think probably I try to like mimic what you do, but yeah, I need to work so hard. But I hate it like
I,
every single time. I like if I'm doing solo, I have to like record a minimum 5 times. I'm not joking, like minimum 5 times.
one take wonder, baby. So I just had one take.
Yeah.
But I hope it was good. So now that I don't know how I did it. And the thing with BBB live streams were like, I only had one shot, right? Once we went live, and that would stay there forever. So I would also hate myself because once like I'm looking somewhere else and then I introduce or like if the intro was not proper, it would like I would like it's very cringe to watch. And that's there permanently. I can't like edit it or do a retake or something. So it's always a tough thing, but the thing is to like just do it and get on. All of us hate ourselves equally, so it's fine.
Yeah.
And with that in due, we're talking as if we haven't been in touch for quite a while. We just spent the last hour talking off camera.
Yeah.
And but
Getting
for
pretty
formalities,
comfortable.
how are you, Sankarshan?
Ah,
Yeah,
I'm
how are
great,
you?
man.
How was your
Like
day?
I am not bad. I'm doing good. So it's like I was telling you earlier, like with this whole pandemic, with everything, like I've been spending a lot of time with by myself. Probably in my solo episode, I'll talk more about this. It's like I am comfortable being lonely right now. Like that's the place I'm at in life. Like I'm happy, like good lonely, like not like sad lonely. So yeah, I'm good, man. I have this podcast so I receive like responses every now and then for episodes, like a DM or something. So that's pretty nice. Like that is worth the effort that I put into. So it's like yeah, this and yeah, that's all, man. I'm good. So
There's
how are
a
you?
yeah, I'm doing good too. And there's a difference between being lonely and being alone. You're happy being alone,
Yeah,
but you're not lonely.
yeah.
So that's the thing.
You
Lonely by
you need
default
to
means that
sign on
you're
air,
missing
Vaishak.
someone.
Like if you quote something, you need to sign. Like Vaishak Dutt. Yeah, yeah. Continue.
But yeah. So like and like I was just discussing this with one of my friends also recently that being alone should be normalized and like going on vacations alone or going to if you see someone come to a bar and if they're drinking alone you say like ayo papa
Either he
he's
had a
drinking
breakup.
alone.
No, he definitely had a
Yeah,
breakup.
papa, yeah, break up papa I feel sorry macha like either that it's like it's fine you should do things alone and it should be normalized I feel and it's good and that's something that the pandemic has taught all of us for sure like yeah we have stages where we have been miserable. Something that it has taught me is that like there's nothing wrong in like being alone but there's also no shame in asking for comfort or
Company.
asking for company when you feel lonely. So it's like it's okay and you should do it. Like it was like a big, what do I say, mental block that I had where I would not tell anyone anything. I was very private. It took me a while, and the pandemic taught me that it's okay to reach out and be open and be vulnerable and stuff like that. So that's awesome. That's good. And I was going to ask you something. I we just spoke about all of this for a long time, and uh, you've been doing this podcast for quite a while. How are you feeling about it?
It's been close to one
How
year.
has the journey been so far?
Uh, this has been the most like rewarding in the more like abstract sense, so like not literal tangible reward, more like intellectual knowledge, wisdom wise. So to me, like most of the learning that I have had in life was through verbal communication. Like most of the life lessons, or like even in college, or like any sort of like learning that I've had, it is when I listen to someone else talk about it. So like with this episode, like episode by episode, like all the like this is 25th, right? It's 25 different conversations, like 25 different perspectives. So even if it is solo, I don't have the same opinion anymore. Like even if it is like 2 3 episodes back, like I'm learning, I'm constantly like growing. Plus, like this is the third time for you, right? Like this is like you're here for the third time. And like past two times when you're here, we had different conversations. Like every time we have conversation, it is different. And so like I have learned like so much about myself, like doing this, because a lot of opinions that come on the fly, like I don't put efforts into thinking what I'm gonna say next. It's mostly like on the fly, like I just randomly talk about it. So most of the like opinions that I had in me, they just like come out. Like I'm like, oh shit, like this is what it's like. It's more, it's like therapy, in other words. So like all the inner thoughts, they just like come out. And yeah,
Therapy, journaling, like
yeah,
that,
yeah.
reflection. Yeah, it's definitely true because when you start putting yourself out there, you see what's going on inside, right? So that's there for sure. Uh, and like personally, I've seen the improvement of like how your podcast, how it started off in the first episode, no intro, nothing. Welcome, to you taking more time and effort and like refining your craft basically. The thing is like it. The beautiful thing about a Sankarshan Joshi trip is like if you go from episode 1 to episode 24 until now, like you can see the growth and you can see like the changes you've made. Like it's like a batsman practicing every day and like improving his cover drive. Like initially it was like tennis ball cricket I'll hit, to slowly like refining yourself more and more and more and like perfecting your craft. And like we will never hit like the we will never reach perfection, but like also like seeing an improvement from podcast to podcast is like very interesting and very heartwarming to see. So good job on that.
Thank you so much. Like,
On
especially
your
coming from you, right? Like, because you are also in the creative space business. Like, you do improv comedy, and you guys, like, you being one of the Bisibele boys, like, you guys put like content out there. So, you guys are in the game. So, like, coming like from you, like, it's very motivating to me, because like initially when I started, I knew like what I could do, and like where I was. Like I could gauge that. So like for episode to episode, I was very hesitant to listen to my previous episode. Like when I did my first episode, right? Like when I did my second episode, I was very hesitant to listen to my first episode because I didn't want to get like demotivated or something. Like this is very internal. Like when people listen to it, they might not find like any difference, but like to me internally there is like so much that goes in my head with respect to like probably I could have like said something better or like articulated this better. Though the problem is like with me, like when I'm saying something right in my head, I think that I've said it, but like when I listen to it again, in between I've missed a word. So like just that one word being cut out, like the entire context change. So it's like I pace myself different. Like it's much more slower because like I want to make sense. I don't want to like just like speak faster just for the sake of it. So yeah, that's been like one of the like learning things throughout.
Yeah, and it's really good that you started out, because I, on the other hand, I put so much pressure on myself to do things the right way and like for things to be that exact way. So I most of the things I never end up releasing at all, or it never sees the light of day because I would have criticized it so much myself that I wouldn't have any power in me to just put it out there. So the thing, I used to watch a lot of Casey Neistat when I was in 10th and first PU. He was like a very big influence on me
Yeah,
back in the day. And like, I started my YouTube channel, whatever that was called, because of him. And, something that I loved what Casey Neistat would do was, uh, he would do like a 20-second video, and at the end he'd put a movie by Casey Neistat. Like, so he had like some a signature style about him. So I've also, if you go to my YouTube channel and see, like, you'll see a movie by Vaishakh Dutt, you know, like, or making short movies, sort of, that ego, or that, with that conviction I used to make stuff. And something that he quoted in like one of his podcasts, it seems, in his vlogs, was that never let perfection be the enemy of something good.
it's
It's
called
better
like
to
paralysis due to analysis. Like you don't move
yeah,
because like you analyze it like too much.
yeah, true. So the thing was like, yeah, never let perfection be the enemy of something good. Like, you're not going to reach perfection. So, but that shouldn't stop you from putting stuff out there. And that I need to, learn and embrace more, because the thing is, it's okay. And like something that like also freaks me out a little is that once if I release something and put something on the internet, oh shit, it's going to be there forever. Like the Vaishak that was there in like the initial days of Bisibelebois as well. If you go look at that, I look very different first of all. So I'm like, oh shit, I look different. Or and then like some of the jokes I would have made, or some of the whatever happened, right? It's there for eternity, and I can't take it back. I'm like, oh, should I have done that? That sort of analysis creeps into me again. But something that I told myself is that it felt right for me to do that in that moment. In that moment, I was like that, and it was funny. It worked out. So like, have faith in your, past. So
Yeah.
like, if I see like 18-year-old Vaishak walking in front of me, I won't beat him up. Like, I still trust him, and I still have like faith in him to do the right thing. So have faith and like be, if not proud, be okay with what you have done in the past. Like, don't like punish yourself repeatedly. It doesn't make sense. So even if like you'll go look at your first episode and you see, oh, it was like this, and like maybe I didn't do this right. I could have done this better. But like, have pride in the fact that like that, how old was he then? 21-year-old Sankarshan ended up doing this. He did this, and like I'm happy that he did. And good job, Sanku. You should tell yourself basically.
Yeah.
And
Thank you so much, man. You
so
know what? Like when you were saying all of that, right? Like it reminded me that like growth comes from a very uncomfortable space. Like if you are already comfortable, like there is no space to grow because you relax there. So like growth comes from a very, very uncomfortable, unpredictable phase where it's like you need to find a balance between like knowing your flaws and then being motivated enough to overcome those flaws. So like you need to have that like graph up straight. Like that is one thing that uh like when you say that like you are very like analytical, when you start putting out content, right? Like you overcome that like part of yourself that is stopping you from growing, that actually helps you in like different part of your life. So it's like me doing this podcast. I am like I'm new to this entire like thing, right? Like I'm not just like some YouTuber, or like I don't have any like content creation background. This is my first time. So a part of me is like very carefree, like majority of it. The other part is still like sometimes I get anxious about like acceptance or like validation part kicks in. It's like am I putting out like good content out there? Like that is one like constant thing. Like am I learning? So every once in a while I have to like pause, I have to like ask, because you get into that like content creation mode. You want to put like more out there, so that like the sooner you'll get recognized or something like that. So in that pursuit of like putting more and more content, you kind of lose a track of like why you started doing this in the first place. So to me, like I feel like if I am comfortable with the journey now, let's say in future if I have like a lot of downloads, a lot of listeners, this is still gonna be this. Like to me, that like it's not gonna change. It's more like external. So internally there shouldn't be any change whatsoever. So like right now I have like a lot of new people like who are like following the podcast. And recently like a guy commented on my like one of his solo episodes. It was like very sweet, it was like very motivating. Like I think like he said something about like me motivating other people or something. Like he just commented that. And I don't know that person, but still like he commented it. Like that meant something to me, because initially when I started, it's mostly like people consume your content, right? But your aim is always that like this content should be relevant to someone who don't know who you are. So like that is where you strive to be, right? So that thing, like it's very like rewarding in the sense that like it's like validation for the content that I put. Like I don't seek validation, but it still like gives me that even if I'm not asking for it types. So yeah.
And there is validation in just carrying out the task itself, right? Like doing it and then hitting upload is enough validation that I had this thought, I had this guest in mind, and I ended up doing it. And like I have a baby, you know, and I'm happy about it. Might not be the most beautiful looking baby in the world, but it's a baby. So,
Yeah, it's
and
like
I'm
you have your goal, right? Like you have your own definition of what a fulfilled life is or what success is. So the other day I was talking to one of my friend. Like I said, to me, success is associating myself with successful people. Like, so I want to be associated with the people who promote growth. So in the sense that like me doing this podcast, right? Like let's say first episode or like 25th or like 2500th episode, like regardless, every single guest is my friend. Like I make sure that I make a new connection, like I make a new friend. A lot of people, like I whom I never met in my life, I have had them on the podcast, and I've had them like twice. So like Neha Taparia, right? Like she was on the podcast twice, and Apurva, she was on the podcast like twice. So I didn't know them. Like they are like complete strangers to me, but now I have friendship with them. So this is in a sense like I am growing very like with respect to like intellectually plus like socially. So like that way it's very interesting. So yeah.
interesting, and it's a very good thing that like you have faith that like you're, you know, making tangible relationships out of your episodes, right? So it's very nice to see. And like I said, awesome stuff. And like and a lesson for like anybody who's watching this is that yeah, just start, and like you will see your growth as you progress.
Yeah.
And uh, you will find things to pick out and not like, no matter where you are in life. So just go about it. And yeah, when you see the growth from episode 1 to episode 24, it's like extremely heartwarming. And like, you know, to see that like yeah, practice makes perfect. And yeah,
It's
dude,
like
great job, great stuff.
that's the thing that I took from fitness, like being one of my like passion. Like I work out every day, but like that is when you see the change. Like uh if you overtrain and if you over like exert yourself in the gym, you don't see growth. If you don't do anything at all, you don't see growth. Like there is a fine balance between the amount of effort that you put in and the amount of time you spend in recovery. So it's like that principle I apply to like everything in my like life. With this podcast, right? Like sometimes I feel like if I don't put an episode out there, I get like super anxious. I'm like I'm missing out on the progress, so I need to like put out there. Like it's like mentally a pressure like comes. And like that's when that goes in the overtraining part. It's like even though you didn't spend enough time like recovering, you want to put like more content out there. So it's like I take significant amount of like break time, and then I put like the content out there. So it's like I am not like, I don't have like a chip on my shoulder to like make a living from this podcast. Like I do this because I love this. So like not getting into that trap is also like one of the important thing, like you were saying, right? I have known literally like 10 people that I know who wanted to do something in YouTube or like in content creation space, but they didn't. So like it's like you saying that like whoever is listening to this, like just start. It's like it makes so much sense because like I just wanted to start. Like I wanted to start and I was like on the fly, like let's see where it goes types. So like I have a lot of friends who are like really good singers. I'm like like record a video and put it out there. But like it's hard for them to get rid of that hurdle and then like putting content out there. So yeah, like just starting, man. Like I think anything, any journey in your life, like just starting is the like hard part. Then like just momentum like keeps you going.
True, and it's all about naivety as well, I think, because if you need to be innocent and you need to think that whatever I do will make an impact or it will, people will like it or whatever. You need to be naive and believe that I'll, my content will make sense. So if you have that naivety in you, it's so much more easier to put it out there. But like as you grow up, you do lose that naivety, right? And then you become very, oh, should I should I really even do this? Oh, there are already 1,000 other podcasters out there. Or should I do that? So that like obviously like, restrains you from going ahead. So like be naive sometimes. So be naive and go ahead. I think what drove BBB in the beginning was that very naivety. Like we were so naive that like the three of us, three college kids, know nothing whatsoever. We could sell out a show, and it ended up happening. Uh, that naivety can drive you forward very much,
It's
and
about dreaming, right? Like dreaming about like something. Like that
dre-
part of naivety, like
yeah.
it's very like hopeful and motivating.
Yeah, so like if we were when we did our first show, me and Vishnu, I remember discussing, and we were like, "How the hell are we going to sell 100 tickets? We can't sell 100. Let's keep a goal of 80. And when we sell 60 only, we'll put out sold out, filling fast, so that people will book more." Like we were so like nervous and apprehensive of selling out, and the thing was, yeah, we were that, and like we were analyzing who would buy tickets. Okay, we might get 10 tickets. No, we now Turkey has 30 members. We'll get 20 tickets at least from them. They will support. Ended up
Nautanki is our
maybe five.
college theater club, by the way,
Yeah,
like for
yeah,
all the peeps who don't know.
yeah, yeah. But five people ended up coming from Nautanki, like in total, like just from Nautanki club. So apart
So
from
how
like
many
people who
tickets
were
do you
our
guys end up
friends,
selling?
we ended up selling 105. So like we overshot our goals. Like we even got calls on show day. Like, do you have tickets? We were at a hotel and we saw some of our friends eating lunch and they walked up to us and were like, do you have tickets? And we ended up selling 3 tickets there. So the thing is like, yeah, that naivety and like, yeah, it'll happen, I think. So you need to just go about it and see what happens. Yeah,
Yeah.
that naivety won't last forever, and after a while, you have to stop being naive and be more technical and uh, be more professional about your end goals and stuff. After a while, yeah, you need to know. Okay, I need to put effort into my editing, or I need to put more effort into the way I talk and improve my vocabulary and English or whatever. That's definitely there, and I think that's something like, even though like I wish I wasn't so apprehensive and analytical about the stuff that I put out, I still think the good side of it is that I've been able to notice the flaws in my content and see
Definitely,
how I could
definitely, man.
improve it.
Like I'm sorry I'm cutting you off there because
No,
like
no, no.
when I spoke to Apurva, right? Like there is a different vibe altogether when you talk to psychologists. Like you feel like you learn so much from it, like just by talking to a psychologist. So when we were talking to Apurva on the podcast, so she mentioned about like randomly I threw a statement saying like I have friends who are very like attention seeking in a very negative light. And then she just told me, she asked me, why do you think they seek attention? So, and then for a moment, I just like I didn't have anything to say back. So she said that they are lacking attention somewhere else, so that's why they're seeking attention like in other place. So like that changed my entire perspective on like how I see people or how I analyze like people. And also like we talked about like overthinking aspect. So I'm like, overthinking, I put that out also in a negative light, because that's what we all do, right? Like we have negative connotation to overthinking. So she said like overthinking works for some people. Like whoever you are today, Vaishak, like you are that based on your experience and what has worked for you. So if like you being analytical, like it's actually helping you, but you think that it's like, I mean, there are negatives to it, but like there comes also positive. So it's like whoever you are, right? Let's say overthinkers, like they think every single possibility that the chances of failure is less. Like when you overthink about something, right? Like with respect to let's say you putting out a play, or you guys putting out a BBB show, like an improv comedy show. If you overthink, right, like you being the analytical person, you can think of every possible way that this could go wrong. So now you know what, like where to fill the gaps. So it's very constructive in that sense.
True. Yeah. Sometimes you overthink about overthinking, and that's like, what the hell, you know?
Yeah.
But good stuff. And now that like you also brought up about, you spoke about the guests that you've had and your learnings and stuff. Uh, what have been like your key learnings from not like doing the podcast, but from like having guests? And what do you think? How has your life changed post the podcast? What have you learned? What are your favorite life lessons from the episodes that you have done?
One of the like goal that I have, like this is gonna remain constant for the rest of my life, or as long as I do this podcast, is I need to learn something when this episode ends. Like that is my goal. So it's like every single guest that I had, right, I definitely learn something, or else I don't put that episode out there. So that's like the benchmark. And it is always like it's so like like the life lesson part is, a lot of people don't know the effort that goes into like making this. Like, so I have an external camera there which is recording me, and there is an external audio like on different device. So I have to merge them, and then my editing, and then like even with respect to bringing guests on, right? Like I can just open my mail ID, like my podcast mail ID. I have sent out like so many emails. In that I get like very few response. So it's basically even though there is a lot of like not rewarding parts and the hard part of the doing the podcast, I have still managed to keep doing it. Like my goal to learn something by having conversation is much more greater than like all the problems that is like there because of this. So I think like this clearly keeping this in mind has like helped me significantly with other things. And like when you start doing something, right, let's say you want to do a startup, let's say you want to design a mobile application, or you want to start a business and you want a mobile application for that, you have zero knowledge about like what a mobile application is or where to start. You become very anxious, right? Like you start thinking about like how do I do. So initially when I started podcast, I didn't know how to edit. Like I had like zero editing skills, like zero editing skills. So I like rather than being demotivated, right? Like I had to shift my mindset to like how do I make this happen? So it's like how do I like make sure that this goes out there? Like that is like the another lesson that I learned. It's like okay, you can't do it, but how do you do it? Like thinking about how aspect. And like coming to the guests, right? Uh like I said with this Apurva thing, this is the like of all the learnings, this comes on top because it impacted me. Like a lot of friends in my past, like like on a personal level. Like I don't know if it makes sense to everybody, but to me, based on what I've been through in life, it made so much sense. Like I could empathize with people differently after talking to her. So it's like whatever people are, it is because of they've been through, what they've been through, and like what experiences have happened to them. So just having that one thought in mind made me a lot more empathetic towards people. And yeah, like when I spoke to Neha Taparia, like it's very interesting because she has a kid, and I am a 21-year-old child. Like I'm 21 and she's like way older than me. But it's like we are talking like as if we are like friends from the same age group. It's like that is the topic that we could connect with. Like human psychology, it's like ageless, it's genderless, it has no boundaries. So I could have like such good conversation with her from like she's a parent and we spoke about parenting. So like one key takeaway that I took from that episode is parents are grown up kids. Like they're not like they're not like you don't have to treat them as adults and they don't have to know everything. So like this is like my other like learning. And when I spoke to you, right, like you were on the podcast twice, and like usually the kind of freedom that you have when you talk to a friend is different because you have their context. Like when you were, I know your strengths and I know your like how you could have a conversation. And like you gave me like so many interesting things about like when we spoke about Mahabharata, right, like when we spoke about the entire storytelling, like when you have your perspective, like it's like you haven't even thought about different perspective. When you listen to that, like it's very refreshing. So that was like you were that to me when it comes to like Mahabharata and mythological stories. You come from a very different standpoint. Like I've talked about you in like so many episodes with Sumuka, with Vishnu, like so many people, because I admire your perspective a lot. So, like when you told me your standpoint of how you see the story, I was like, holy shit, like this makes so much sense. So then I start evaluating my perspective. So then my perspective moves. So yeah, like, I can go on and on about this because like every single person, I remember every single episode. There is so much I learned from everything, but like to keep it short, like yeah, this is like on top.
Yeah, it was a trick question. I just wanted to hear you praise me. But anyway, uh, nothing. But awesome. And like for sure, you would have made a lot of learnings, and
Hey Vaishak,
it's
you
it's
tell me Vaishak about
hmm?
like you did podcast too, right? Like with Bisibelebois, you guys did live on YouTube. You had different guests, and your like last guest was someone you guys didn't know too. It was a very like the season one is over. It was 8 episodes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was brief, but it was like really good. So like, what was your learnings from like you talk like when you talk to like guests there?
Uh, on a technical side, one, I learned to be more prepared because since it was live streaming, it's only like one shot, right? It's like one take. Whatever you get is whatever you have. So I learned to be more prepared during those episodes and like be prepared in the sense that like schedule the live properly, send the Zoom links out in time, all of that stuff. Like even if I ended up doing all of that, there would still be like points of anxiety just before going live, like, oh shit, Instagram link's not working, it's not opening up. So like I'm just saying that yeah, fuck ups do happen no matter what. So just be like more prepared for it in the sense that you could like tackle them in a better way. So that's one learning that I definitely had. And in terms of like speaking with people, like I didn't know that I could talk so much in a way. And yeah, I would also
Welcome
like
to the club.
sometimes, yeah, sometimes like Sunday I would wake up and like shit, I have to talk again now today. Oh damn, should I talk? But then like once I started doing the podcast, like points of conversation would just come out, and that's a beautiful thing about podcasts as well, is that there's a difference between an interview and a podcast. And I'm going to ask you a question about this later as well, because in interviews you just ask question and you wait for the response, but in podcasts it's a conversation, right? You need to pitch in with your points as well. You need to make the guest feel comfortable to talk. You're talking with each other, and there's a pressure there where you shouldn't overpower the guest. You should allow them to shine, but at the same time, if you're silent, you will make them uncomfortable. So after I end my learnings, I wanted to tell, how did you learn? How did you come up with ways to ensure that you made your guests comfortable, and how did you, what do I say? How did you know that I'm talking too much or I'm not talking enough? Because sometimes, like, I remember you telling, like, shit, it's my turn to talk. I should say something, no? So feeling that, like, oh, I have to say something now, right now. That thought coming to you, that's definitely there. So how did you deal with all of those? You can continue after I end my learnings. But yeah, as we spoke with like different people, it was nice. It was nice in the sense that when we were doing the podcast, it was still like they were talking with the Bisibele boys. So they knew that they were talking with comedians. It wasn't like a completely different Vaishakh Dutt coming and talking with like a very serious, it wasn't like that. They knew that they were talking with comedians. So they knew that we don't take things seriously, right? It's like you have, let's say, two teachers in school. One teacher is very lenient, and like he's the teacher who cracks jokes and you have fun. And then there's a very strict teacher. That same topic, when you discuss, you approach them very differently, right? With the strict teacher, like, you'll be very professional, and like you'll say, oh, I hope if I say something it doesn't come out wrong. I hope he doesn't misunderstand me. But whereas with the more friendly teacher, you talk more naturally, and like you're like, I mean, like, you have fun, right? So I think our guests were comfortable knowing that, like, we're comedians and we don't take things out of context, and we allow for, like, jokes and banter and fun stuff to happen around us. So like, if we ask you a question, we make jokes about it too. So, and like, we're funny about it, and so they were not afraid to make mistakes or say the wrong thing. So that space was there. So it was nice to just talk with that context and stuff. So that was fun, and definitely a lot of personal learnings, because eh, we, in a way, we knew a lot of them. So to see this side come out of them, and it's fun to like extract information out of the people. So all in all, yeah, it was definitely fun, and I think the fact that, like, we kept a time limit for ourselves, like we told we're gonna do this and we'll end now, and we were very disciplined and about it, and we had a schedule and all of that. So all of that was definitely a fun experience. I would do it again, but sometimes I feel like, oh, enough talking. Let me just chill for a while. I will only listen. But yeah, that's my answer, and now you can tell about what I just said. Being
it
like,
is it
how did
is
you
so
balance
crazy, like, that we are talking about all of this. I wouldn't have imagined that I would talk about like all of this, because what people see, it's like a movie, right? Like, there's a making and the actual movie. So there is podcast, and all of this that we are talking are like BTS, like these are all the behind the scenes that happens, right? And I didn't think in a million years that I would like talk about like what happens, like in the behind this scenes. um
behind the scenes and inside your head also,
yeah, it's
right?
so it's so crazy, like with respect to like content, right? Like, to answer your question, initially, I like when you have a conversation, it's very it's you're not conscious, like it just happens. But when you're recording, right, initially I was conscious. So it's like when you're recording, the conversation is different, but when you're offline, the conversation is slightly different. Like, to me it's more or less the same, but like it's slightly different. Like that gap was that, uh like when like in my first episode, people would always add their opinion even though you don't have to end it with a question. So it's like, especially in podcasts, right? Like, I listen to a lot of podcasts, not a lot, like three, four, but like every single
That's that's four more than majority of the people, so it's fine.
yeah.
So yeah,
So it's like when they say something, they end it with a question. So I was that too initially, but then I realized I don't like, it's not a question answer. Like, it's more like two people discussing. So having into like moving it in that format, and also embracing the silence, like, it's like conversation is important and silence is also equally important, like, because you need to know like when to talk and when to not talk. To make a good like quality conversation, you need to be aware of that fact. So uh like I was too afraid of silence when I started. It's like because I exaggerate like the silence, because in your head you're like, okay, wait, like do I have to edit this? So like how much time is this like gap? But like slowly I became comfortable with the silence, like I was embracing the silence. So like that has been like the pretty like the awesome part of like everything. Even with offline, right, you can just look at someone and nod and they can continue their, like you don't have to ask something, like you don't have to question. Like you being interested in the conversation is an incentive for them to keep going with what they're talking. And so and also like when to talk and when not to talk. Like if you are interrupting, like if you're interrupting, how do you interrupt? Like you have to, you shouldn't like straight up interrupt. Like you like how, like I had to learn that skill, like because I was very talkative, and like my like family, they make fun of me that like I keep talking even if the other person is not interested in listening. So it's like that has been like one like thing that I had to like overcome myself to be like better at like making the podcast and like making the conversations matter.
Interesting. Basically, like it's like, what do I say? When someone else is talking, you're so much in your head. What next question do I ask? You know, uh,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
that's so true. That's so true. But I stopped being that, like that's when like I could be more of me when I stopped doing that. Like 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 I said, how like conversation and silence are like balanced. Similarly, talking and listening is also like equally balanced. So it's like it's similar to acting. Like when Sumuka was there on my first episode, we spoke about defining acting. Like what is it to act? And I told that it is to react. Like let's say you shout at me, you say a dialogue. My acting is a reaction to your statement, or reaction to a situation. So a conversation will be good if you listen and reply to them. Not like let's say a conversation is something, you have something else going on in your mind and you say something that is very irrelevant, or that's not in line with what the other person said. So it's like finding the balance, like be in the moment, like because you have to listen to them, be in the moment. So yeah, that part is also like so true when you say it.
yeah, yeah. Getting out of your head is very important, and I think that's what something that I have. Uh, like listening is very important, and it's more important than talking only. Sometimes I feel if you are a good listener, you can, rather than always trying to put your point across, you can end up with such beautiful conversations rather than just it becoming a battle of who makes the better point, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
silence always
So,
works, like sometimes words fail but silence works. Like in majority of the cases, like silence and listening, sorry, like not silence,
yeah,
listening like works all the time than talking. It's
true.
basically you're acknowledging, right? Like everybody wants validation and acknowledgement to feel their presence. So when you listen, it's like you're acknowledging what they're saying, or the amount of time that they spend. I am very grateful to people who come on the podcast because they are spending time talking to me. So that means that I must have had some impact on them, that they are willing to do that. So I really, like I'm very grateful for that. So like every time I bring a guest on the show, I have minimum 30 minutes of talk on the call. So like just to know their mental space, basically becoming friends. Like I become their friend then, and then it's like friends having conversation. To do that, it's like,
Yeah.
so
It's like that continuation of that conversation is the
yeah,
podcast, basically.
yeah,
It's not like you're meeting for the first time. Then it will be like hard. You can't, in the podcast, you don't have time to break the ice. You have to start off with meaningful conversation straight away. So that 30 minutes acts as a good icebreaker. And they know, hey, I can chill with this guy for
yeah.
2 hours. And yeah, so
Certain
good stuff.
opinions people don't respect, or people don't like. Now we live in this like woke culture, like cancel culture. It's like you're being cancelled for having an opinion. like how like how the fuck can you cancel someone for having a certain opinion? It's like that's like people are like so like into this culture right now with this whole cancel thing, cancel culture, everything. So when I have the 30-minute call, I like if they feel that I respect their opinion, and they should feel like their opinion is being respected, and I don't fake it. Like if they don't feel it, they don't come. So I am like so open to opinions, and I'm open to change mine too, that like people will let their guard down with sharing their opinions. Like now, let's say if I say like randomly that being a pedophile is not wrong, like you're gonna get so much hate just for having this opinion. So like yeah,
That was a bad example for an opinion, but okay.
okay, wait. Let me just clarify this part before like people go crazy. It's like
Yeah.
when a guy sees a naked girl, he gets a boner, right? Like that's his body responding to that, like it's stimulus thing. If
Okay.
you get turned on by a child, isn't that biology? Like wait, like you don't have to act on it. Like you don't have to, like you can, like just because you're getting turned on, that doesn't mean you have to act on it. So it's like just because you get turned on by a woman, that doesn't mean you go force her to like have sex with you. Like that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying like we don't even acknowledge things. Like that's my problem. Like okay, like pedophiles exist. Like just because you don't talk about them or like their thing, you don't seem interested, that doesn't like make their presence vanish. Like that's what I'm saying. Like yeah, like does this make sense, Vaishak? Like what do you think about this? Let's take a left turn here.
Uh, the thing about respecting opinions is definitely, yeah, I agree with that too. Like, different people have different opinions, and we should have a safe space for everybody to represent their opinions. And the thing about opinions is that opinions change. So you shouldn't judge a person based on their current opinion, because the opinions that I had when I was younger, some of them were wrong. And now let's not act like we didn't have wrong opinions back in the day. All of us did change, and we need to respect that change. And I think that's something true about forgiveness as well. We should be open to forgive. You shouldn't, like, reject a person based on his current misdeeds. You should, I feel like, yeah, it's, would you be, who could forgive how much, that's subjective and it's different for different people. But I'm just saying that we should be open to allow people to change and not, judge them only on their immediate thing.
I
But
mean,
I
like
think the
you do
point that,
judge like subconsciously, like it's involuntary. Like judgment is
yeah,
involuntary, of course, but like you have to send like the rescue thoughts for that thought. Like if you are having like a negative feeling for someone, what are you like? Are you acting towards, like what are your next step? I think that's probably important, because thoughts are involuntary, right? Like judgment is also like it's thought.
yeah, and true. So that's definitely there. Thoughts are nothing. Uh, I remember Sihi telling me this, that she saw this from a movie or a book where thoughts mean nothing more than a freckle on your face. So like thoughts are nothing. It's basically your actions that count, and that's for sure. But I'm just saying that, like, yeah, we should be open to people changing. And like, if I see a friend, a second grade friend of mine now, when I'm grown up, I will not like judge him based on the fact that he used to eat mud in second standard, right? I'm like, he used to eat mud, I won't become friends with him. It's wrong thing. Like, he has like lived life, and like he's a different person now. So people change, and we should respect that. But the thing about you, yeah, I think
Pedophiles.
the yeah, the point that you are trying to make based on that is that, like, we should be more understanding. And yeah, there are things which are unquestionably wrong, and as a society we need to accept that and
You know what,
act
like
on it.
right or wrong is basically framed by the society. Like back, let's say 100 years back, few things that were considered wrong are not wrong anymore. So let's say back in the day, how we see pedophiles, that's the same way how people saw gay men. Like that, like that's exactly how they saw them. It's like now you're acknowledging them, you're not only acknowledging, you're fighting for their empowerment. So I'm
True.
not saying the same thing will happen for pedophiles, But like what I'm saying is you're
No. I get what it's true in the sense that that's why like we're moving forward. Like if we aren't bettering ourselves as society, what's the point? If we are falling back into our mistakes, then there is no progress in society. So yeah, child marriage was a thing back then. Our grandparents got married at 14, 15. But that's not right. We know that now. And it's good. We shouldn't say that like we objectively now know that like it's not right for such things to happen. And that's something which we as a society have decided. And that's the whole point
you know
why society
things
is moving
change
forward.
based on like there is a different context. Like I think context changes. Like when there were arranged marriages, right? Like back in the day, there are good things that like there are positives to that too. Like probably that would have worked now, like it worked then because of the circumstances and context. So now the context and the environment has changed. So now when the environment changes, the same thing is not like applicable anymore. Like people don't acknowledge that. Like there is no one thing that is universal. Like change is the only constant, right? Like people don't even like acknowledge. That's my problem. Like uh let's say randomly I go to my college and I start talking about like how gays should have sex or something. Like I start giving sex education about gays. I would definitely be silenced. Like teachers would be like, "What are you talking about? Like, can we not talk about this or something like that?" It's like people don't talk about things that they're uncomfortable with. Isn't like that is the major problem with like even with opinions, right? Like you cannot like condemn someone for having a certain opinion about something. Like either you put in effort to change that or ignore them. like like just because they don't have the same opinion as yours, like it's like that loop of like that's where you fall into this entire like fake woke culture. Hmm.
I don't know. I don't I think I have a very nuanced take on it, or I don't have a take on it at all. But yeah, I understand what you're
You know
trying
what,
to
this is so
say.
awesome. Like last time when you were on the podcast, we were talking about like gods and spirituality. You had an entirely opposite perspective of what I had. Eh, and then you listened to me, and then you said you like you differ from that opinion, and then we continued the conversation to different thing. Like we agreed to disagree and we respected each other's opinion, and we carry forward it with the other conversations. And I think that is what we are all lacking. Like we can agree to disagree. Like this is one thing that like doing this podcast has taught me is I need to have content, I need to grow so that I can put out like better content out there. Like I can talk better, like knowledge and wisdom wise. So for that I need to listen to people, I need to acknowledge other people's opinion, and if I don't agree, and I need to agree disagree it gracefully. So yeah.
I'll what you were trying to tell with your take on this current culture or whatever was that like people are so much in their heads that when they see an opinion that is not theirs or something, they cancel it immediately and they're not accepting, right?
They also get
But
reward for canceling it. Like it's
true,
like
and
hmm.
it's not a reward. It's something that happens as a group, right? So it's a group identity thing that's happening. So if you don't have this opinion, then you will not be a part of this group.
Ah.
So your group identity is in question. It's not just your individual identity. So if you belong to this particular political ideology, you by default you should not like anything from the opposite political ideology. If you do, means this group will reject you, right? So it's something that's it's an identity thing as well. It's group identity along with your individual identity. So yeah, there are two sides to this thing. One is like, yeah, we should be more accepting and we should, you know, be more understanding of others'
Even if
opinions.
you
But
don't
on the other
accept it,
hand,
acknowledge it. Like I don't even care if people accept or not. Like that is their decision, but just acknowledging shit out there.
true, acknowledge in the sense that like be okay with opinions other than yours existing.
Hmm.
Fine, fair enough. But when you say about something like the pedophile thing or example, if like you're a parent and it was your child which was under concern, then I don't give a fuck about your opinion. I'm not going to understand you, in my head that's wrong, and I don't want to hear anything about it, right? So it's not right then to, so like that, they're the two sides that I'm talking about. One side is like, yeah, as outsiders, we have, you know, uh, we can be like, oh, we need to be acknowledging and understand both sides. But like when the actual party is in concern, like when you are in the shoes of the person who has, witnessed such a thing, then I don't give a fuck about empathy. I just,
No, no. See, or like when I said about this whole pedophile thing, right? Like just because a woman turns me on, like that is not wrong. But like, what are my action towards it defines what I'm doing is right or wrong, right? Like just because there is a stimulus in my head, that doesn't mean that I can do whatever I want. I cannot act based on my stimulus. That decides, right? So I'm just talking about like not the action, like. I haven't told this before ever, but like when I was a kid, I was like I was kind of abused by like one of my neighbor. Like he was a pedophile. uh so like I have been there. Like that is very very scary. So like what I'm saying is that like I cannot disregard the existence of that person. Like whatever he's feeling, I like I'm not saying his feelings are right or wrong. I'm saying his actions are wrong, but his feelings, I don't know if I can say they're wrong. You know what I mean? Because like you being attracted, it's more involuntary, right? Like how can I like blame him for something he can't have control over? Like that's what I'm like to give a perspective.
first off, I'm sorry you had to go through that. And secondly, it's very courageous of you to put this out
You know,
there.
now it's a joke to me. Like now I'm at a point where like I joke about it. Yeah, weirdly it's funny. Like now I'm that like like it scarred me for some time, but like now I'm like, yeah, like if I meet him in person, that's gonna be like a different scene. But now I'm not gonna meet him in person, so I don't have to like think about the action that I'm gonna do if I meet him. So that's like a different conversation altogether. But yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, the thing like you telling that uh, I can't judge him for that. I think it's a very bold and like, what do I say? It's very rare for a victim to have such a take on the abuser and not, and like, it's, I don't know. So, but what I'm trying to tell is like, yeah, I understand what you're trying to tell, where him being that way was like a result of his childhood as well. And uh, it's like he has whatever is in his head was that. So, but the thing is like, yeah, if you are getting such thoughts or something, it's like some thoughts are like a cause of concern, right? So I think, yeah, we all should be like, I don't know, at least a good way to proceed is to have conversations about it.
Hmm.
But all of these are like very touchy things and like very controversial, very
This is a
sensitive.
very
So
long left turn.
very long left turn, and we should be very sensitive and very careful about it, because at the end of the day, yeah, end up saying something, you end up saying something. We'll be friends. It won't matter to us, but for other people, right, it can like affect us. So in a way that like, yeah, like the point that I made earlier, let's just be more accepting, acknowledging whatever you want to call it of each other, and try to create a safe space for everyone to, at least where they're not afraid to voice themselves. At
Yeah.
least that much
This
I
was
think we
all
can.
about like we fell into this entire loop of conversation because of opinions, right? Like that was the keyword that like took us on this conversation. So yeah, I wanna connect the dots back and then like we can take the
And one
conversation.
more point about opinion which I have is that like there are places where you are not supposed to have an opinion. So if you are a straight person, you have no opinion. You should not have any opinion about the policies regarding same-sex relationships or whatever, right? If you are a man, you shouldn't have opinions regarding policies which regard women's welfare or something,
You know, you can
because
have
you
opinions, but you don't have to impose them.
no, their opinions, because you can never be in that same place, right? You can, of course, you can have a conversation about it, but you ultimately, like, I feel like if everyone has an opinion about everything, then we will never,
See,
end up
like if
deciding on one
someone,
thing.
let's say, government is making laws for like gay people, then it should be some gay person in the government, right? Like that means that, let's say, if a government, whoever he is, like making the decision, that means that if he's not gay, then he shouldn't make that decision because like it's his opinion, no? Like, does this make sense? It's like like a lot of people who are not in that minority or like who are not in that category make decisions for them, let's say government. So then you will have to have an opinion after like talking to them or something like that, like understanding both the parties. So like opinion matters in some places, but like you have no right over like uh assuming what they feel. Like if you don't feel what they feel, making assumptions on their behalf is wrong, is what I feel, than opinions.
True. That happened in like Madras High Court, where like the judge had to take a stance on a same-sex relationship, so he took counseling regarding that, and then he came and he declared. So, which is very nice to see people being more accepting and
Progressive.
empathetic towards others, progressive and empathetic mainly, to understand the other person. That's there for sure. And uh, yeah, I don't know. It's a very touchy thing because like I go back and forth as if like are we becoming too soft and sensitive, or like what is this about, like
That's like,
political correctness. So like I go back and forth, but it's a constant thing, and you just have to live your own life. I guess that's all.
I think that's probably like circling back to, this is one of the things that like doing this podcast has taught me, is to have my opinion. Like, if I have to talk about something, I need to have an opinion, but I'm willing to talk about the opposite party and change my opinion. Like, that's a different topic. But like recently in one of my Q&A episode, like solo episode, one of I got a question like asking me to review a news article or like some criminal event that has happened. They asked me to review. So I stay away from news. Like, I stay away because of the negativity out there. Like, it's rapes all the time. It's and I also said I don't know if it is that bad outside, or news people are like media people are only choosing to put that negative shit out there. Like, I don't know. So I stay away from it. So that is not right, right? Like, just like I am not even acknowledging what is happening. Like, I'm being hypocritical here. So just to not get triggered my like emotion, like if I hear like a kid being raped in like Kerala or somewhere, I get super triggered, and like I have a lot of emotions that start like fluttering inside me. So like for that episode I had to like numb my like that part, and I have to be logical, and I went into that like looking for news articles and talk about it. So like doing podcast taught me how to be rational in a way. Like, if like I'll be rational and talk to people who have like different opinion than what I have. Like, it's good that people have different opinion. I wouldn't have conversation for hours with someone who has same opinion as me. Then like what am I getting from it? It's mostly like emphasizing what we already believe in. So it's like, yeah, that is also one more learning from doing the podcast. So circling back to that
True. Yeah, and like our lives, decide our opinions, right?
experience,
So
yeah,
yeah, so we are bound to have different opinions because none of us have the
the
same
same
lives, right?
lifestyle, yeah. So true, man, so
But
true. Like,
yeah,
I like, this is what I love. Like, uh even offline also, I don't like having like conversations that don't matter. Like randomly, me and my sister the other day, we are sitting in balcony, and I am randomly talking about like something like that's on my head. Like, something is always like going on in my head like all the time, with respect to like what is right or what is wrong, with respect to like whatever is happening in the world, like philosophical, or like if I read a story, it's like I keep going back and forth with that. So like this is where I get to reflect that part of me. So like even if I don't get like views or listeners or whatever it is, this like my tick marks or like my to-do list, I add all of this there. So if my episode fulfills that part, then it's it's good to me.
Awesome. Yeah, quite a big left turn. And let's see what you feel about this when you're editing and what you've said. Because then only you'll be a different Sankarshan, right? So that's
You
how
know
quickly
what?
we can
That's
change.
one different thing. Have you ever heard yourself, Vaishak? You're in the content creation business, and please tell me how you feel.
I feel okay. I mean, like, I'm like, shit, is this how I sound? But, like, I'm not that.
You
I
know,
feel
we
like I
are
have a more.
mutants. Like people, like even I am okay with my own voice. Like that is where I am. Like that is what 25 episodes of podcast will do to you. Like you are okay
Yeah, I
with
guess.
your own voice.
Yeah. Took me a while to be okay with my own voice also. But I wasn't, like, always okay with it. Especially when, like, I didn't have a more deeper voice. My childhood voice was, like, nasal. It was like, eh. I mean, like, I sound like this.
And
So, yeah.
also like people, like all the girls want to like they want chiseled jawline or like abs and like deep voice. So it's like that insecurity was also in me, like that was developed. So when I was doing this podcast, right, like randomly one person like texted me, or like when we were talking to one of my like friend, uh he said like even like anyways your voice is good, so when you do a podcast like it makes sense. I was like, holy shit, like, are you kidding me? Like, for the longest period of time, I was insecure about like how my voice sounds, because all my like friend circle, I had friends who kept asking me why my voice is not like deep enough or some shit like that. It's like when you have shitty friends like that, insecurities develop, right? So it's like when I had like me accepting my own voice and like being comfortable with it, it's it's very like liberating. Like nothing is holding you back in that sense.
Awesome. So we've talked about a lot of things till now, your learnings and your opinions and all of that, how that has affected you. Let's talk about, were you very disciplined when it came to your podcast? As in, like, I should release it today or I should release it within this day. And uh, have you, like, acted on that? Have you, like, been disciplined throughout? And what, apart from being just disciplined, uh, did you, like, start, putting more effort into the back end things of the podcast, such as writing questions down, which, like, I've observed, like, you started doing it more recently, and how has all of those things affected you? And, like, how do you think, like, key takeaways and key learnings about this side of the podcast?
Like this is what I think like sets any content creators apart from other content creators, because there are millions of podcasts in the world, there are millions of bloggers in the world, millions of vloggers, millions of like fitness vloggers or whatever it is. There are millions of them, but like some people consistently do it and some people don't. I think that like consistency is what sets you apart from all the people who are doing the same thing. So I always like strived to like when people see my podcast, right, it shouldn't seem like some kid is doing something just for the sake of doing it. I wanted like people to perceive it as a form of like good content or something. So like I am very very like disciplined with respect to like my editing and all of that, right? Like I spend 2 to 3 hours editing, and so it's like the day I finish my podcast, I do nothing else before editing this podcast. So all the major things that I do, like they fall back like in my priority list, they fall back after this editing, because I was interning somewhere, like from morning till evening I was working, but I still managed to do the podcast. So it's like if like I have figured out my space. So if I spend 2 hours recording the podcast, I spend 2 hours editing the podcast and then export. So like as I keep doing more and more, the amount of time that I spend editing reduces. So it's like discipline helps me organizing this like placing podcast and editing the process with my other things. So yeah, that way I've been like very very disciplined. Plus uh like sometimes I like even if you want to be disciplined, you don't get response from any guests. So now you're thinking like whom to bring next, or like I like it's very demotivating. Then I'm like what to do. Then like do I do like another solo, or do I bring other guests? So it's like finding a balance between the discipline and also like laying low sometimes on the discipline part. So it's like I cannot be headstrong with like I need to do it. So then what will happen is that will affect my content. It's like I'm forcing myself to put content out there. So yeah, like I have learned where to be disciplined, when to be disciplined, and when not to be, and when to relax, so that I'm not like forcing my content out there. So yeah, with respect to that part, yeah. Now I'm putting efforts into like learning the guests' background and whatever their field is. So now I had Sihi on the podcast and we spoke about like toxic beauty culture. She has a very like good background with makeup and all. She's very passionate about it. So I had zero knowledge about that. So I did a lot of research before doing that episode because I didn't know that subject. So it's like now I just don't like yeah, like I just don't come and like ask questions like you said. Like I do my research, I do my best to know that field, to have like at least like a good conversation around it. So yeah, you are very like if you start doing something, Vaishak, I've observed like you're very like disciplined with it. You directed our play, right? Like you were very very disciplined with the entire process. Like writing a play is the hardest, like one of the hardest things anyone could ever do. So like this is very random, so I want you to like tell me like what is your process like with like your content creation, all of that. Like with comedy it's different, with directing a play it's different, but yeah, like what do you do? I'm curious now.
It's what do I say? It's I'm very methodical and very what I say things have to be done in not only in like this these things have to be done. It's like these things have to be done in this order only. So that sometimes like affects with the whole thing, like that whole thing we talked about. Never let perfection be the enemy of something good. Or sometimes it's okay. Like let's say you remember, right? Like I was not okay with us starting practice until I had finished writing. But you were like, we'll start with whatever we have, no? Like how much ever you've written, we'll start practicing with that. As time passes, you start writing. You said that, but like I'm like, oh, it bothers me because like in my head, I want the entire play to be written once. I have to like proofread it like 10, 12 times, see what errors are there, refine things, and then after that I have to give you your character sketches, and then I have to start reading, and then by heart, and then blocking, and then with actions. I have like this process for the play to be conducted. But yeah, this thing, like it's not only like I have to do these things have to be done in this order. So like I am very in my head that way. So like that's why like I'm not that good with timelines, and like if deadlines are there, like because it affects with the way I would do stuff. So that's again something that I need to learn, which is to find a balance between getting it done and getting it done the right way. So like in between, I have to be okay with it, right? Because like if I had saved time during this early part, maybe we could have had more time during practice later, where I could have had more fun with like you guys trying, maybe you guys improving some scenes or something. So yeah, that's something I need to learn. But yeah, I am very methodical and dedicated about it. And yeah, for me things have to be done that way, and it's nice to when you envision it that way and like everything checks off. But also something that I've learned with being in a team is that different people work in different ways, and I should be okay with it. It doesn't make sense if I try to impose my ways on others. Then like it just becomes a bad workspace. So we need to be okay. I need to be okay with how other people, work, and I need to be more accommodating and all of that stuff. So yeah, it's a constant learning thing. But yeah, it's something that like has helped me, and yeah, I need to.
I think it
It's
definitely has
interesting.
helped. Like, how old were you when you directed your like first play? Like you wrote and you directed.
I think that was in school only, probably in 8th, 12, 13 years old.
Like a piece of work that you're proud of. Like,
That
uh,
was I think that was Vibhajana, and I was 18 then, right? Yeah, I was
hmm,
18.
I, I like. Let me be honest. So when I acted in the play that you wrote, right? Like it didn't seem like you were younger to us, and you were like there wasn't any age barriers, because with respect to how organized and how meticulous you were with your like with the entire process, right? I think that's why the play was at the level that it was. Like even if it is even if it was not like a William Shakespeare play level, it was way better than the most of the plays that came out of our theater club, because of you, and like because of the meticulous process that you believe in. It's like I I tried writing a play. You can write a scene, like it could be like small one, but writing an entire play is so hard, because you have to imagine a conversation and you have to make it natural. Like how ironic is it, like you're imagining something to like make it natural. So you're like when a conversation is to and fro, you're writing from this perspective, and when this dialogue is done, you like put the other character's shoe on, and then you write from their perspective, and then you build the character backgrounds in such a way that they come and collide at that point. It's like their background should be in place. So you were very perfect in that sense. Like the script, right? Like the dialogues were so good. It didn't seem like it was force fitting. It went natural, and it was like awesome. Honestly, like the experience that I took with you, right? It was very very like liberating in sense.
True, and like I obviously like dedicate whatever I've learned to the directors I have worked under, right? I think I've always been like either a very tough actor to work with or a very easy actor to work with. Because tough in the sense that if the director comes and tells me something to do out of like if you ask me to do something and I don't envision my character doing it, or I don't think that it makes sense in the script, I like argue and I'll be like, hey, it doesn't make sense because I
That's the
imagine the
director
play.
in you talking, right?
Yeah. So that way it's very hard. But like if but I'm and on the other hand I'm very easy to work with because sometimes what I imagine is like exactly what the director is imagining as well.
Yeah.
So it
Like they
just
don't
like
have to put
goes.
extra effort in explaining it to you,
Yeah,
because you were once a director and you know what they're trying to communicate. Makes sense.
yeah. So like there are both sides and I've faced both sides, but I've learned a lot from the directors I've worked under. And I worked under Shruti Patsarthi, Jasmati's sister, and she was like very technical in how like she used to like I like my toes fidget when I just stand still. And she's like, hey, you're doing that. You need to stop. Like
To
she
give
was
a
very
context,
attentive to
I'm so
detail.
sorry, like I'm cutting you off. Like Jayasmati is a co-founder of Piece of Paper Production along with
Yeah. This
Sumuka, and
was
Sumuka was like recently on the podcast, so you guys can go check it out. Yeah.
yeah, cute plugin. And this is part of POP's first fold, their first ever professional theater show. So yeah, she was very attentive to detail, and like I am like that as well. So like I would observe how would that affect me, and then Sumuka is like much more accommodating of like you bringing in your own self and all of that. So I've learned that from him. But in general, yeah, it's just that like I have belief and I love stories so much and the storytelling process itself that like it's just like I want this story to be told in this right way, and I think that's what drives me when I'm directing at least. And yeah, That's thank you for your compliments regarding me being a strict director from the Hollywood. But
You
yeah,
recently I sent you a WhatsApp picture of the notes that you made while we were
yeah, yeah,
performing, and under my section you wrote overacting.
yeah, yeah. Like I remember those things. Like first play, like how brutal I am with feedback. I remember like I wrote the other play anniversary too, right? And in that, like I remember like Summer acted and like Summer and him we were like friends as well, right? We are very close friends. And I ended up giving feedback that was so harsh, like to him. So yeah, I remember. I'm brutal with that stuff. But
You
yeah,
know what? I think like that's the most admirable thing ever. Like, this is what I want to talk about next because I've been thinking about it. Like now, when you're talking, it's like there is there is certain things that is similar in you and me. That is that we don't see things to be like commercially big or small. Like anything that we are doing, right? Like we want it to be at an industry level mark type. Like we want to put like that much effort into it. It shouldn't seem like some bunch of kids are doing it, or like it should seem like a proper piece of art. Like let's say me doing this podcast, I don't want it to be like some lame kid is talking, or I am lame, but like I don't want it to be like that. Like I want people to at least give it a listen and be like I want them to forget that they're listening and dive into the conversation. So even with your play, it's like you don't want people to see that, oh, a kid has directed. You want people to see the story. So it's like that dedication thing, right? Like that's what drives for long form content. It's like long form in the sense you can do that sustainably for a long period of time because you're believing in the process. So now, like with the whole, like the TikTok, with the whole reels and with everything that is happening, right? There is a different dimension to content creation right now. So what do you think is content creation like in like 2020, and like what do you think how it's gonna be like in the next few years? Like I'm very
yeah,
curious to hear your thought.
yeah. The thing is regarding you telling that like we demand like a certain standard for the stuff that we put out. That's definitely true because I think what I believe in is that like you might not have the best camera in the world, you might not have the best audio setup, you might not have the best lighting or whatever, but like with whatever you do have, you should like put effort into putting the best version of that. You shouldn't settle for anything less. So even if you have, even if you're using your phone microphone to record audio, take the effort to learn how you could remove noise from like audio editing, free audio editing software. Okay, if and then like in light, find out the best place for lighting in your room. With editing, see if you can, even if it's a free editing software, see how what effort you could put into it. Like don't half-ass anything, basically is what I'm saying. Even if, basically use your resources to the maximum potential, and don't not put effort just because you don't have the best industry level equipment or something. So with that said, yeah, the thing about content, like we have talked about this on Bisibele Boys, our podcast and everything, and like it's a constant source of conversation as well, which is that, yeah, I think content is content, and whatever we see is a reflection of ourselves. If us seeing short form content is a reflection of our short attention spans, it's not like it suddenly happened and like we came across it. It's that it's everything is a reflection of ourselves. And like I am not the person who like thinks that, oh, this sort of content should exist or this sort of content shouldn't exist. I'm like, if I don't like it, I won't watch it. That's enough. I won't tell like, oh, this shouldn't exist. I don't have such strong opinions about anything. But yeah, it's going to be interesting in a way because Reels comedy will start, you know, competing with YouTube 5 minutes comedy, and YouTube 10 minutes comedy clips started, competing with specials, 1 hour specials on Netflix and stuff. And those Netflix specials compete with actual live shows. So like this constant competition of stuff is always there. And that's not saying that they are the same thing. They are very different. And you can never get a live show experience sitting in your home. That's there for sure. But it's just like sometimes you're like, hey, I don't want to pay $700 to go to that show. Let me just watch it when it comes out on Netflix or something. So that sort of competition will always be there, and it's interesting to see how it goes. And it's not like our audience for one sort of art form will completely die because of this new art form coming up. So it is interesting. I just think like even good reels comedy exists, good live shows exist. Both can exist. It's not like, oh, now that reels are there, long form things, they won't exist anymore. I don't think that's the case. It's just like interesting now to see everything. And obviously our environment, which is like we live in like a post pandemic world, and all of that's there, right? So yeah, with that, like obviously things will be different when it comes to social media and content creation and everything. So it's just like be a part of the ride and then just choose what you like and choose what you want to do
You
and
know
have fun
what?
with that.
Like, uh, I don't I don't mind if the time that we are spending is reducing, if the reels are becoming shorter and shorter. I don't care. Like if the like if our attention span is reducing or not. Like it does matter, but what matters more is the content. Like you said, there are so many like people who makes awesome reels. It is not about time span there. It is about the dedication in creating the content. So the like one of the thing that people needs to realize is the amount of views that you get doesn't mean your content is good. Like with this reels and everything, it's all about algorithm. It's not about your content. Uh, like a girl can do a stupid dance and can get millions of views, but that doesn't mean that that content is good, or that doesn't mean that you can monetize over that content. Like there are like now fame has no meaning. Like people becoming famous has no meaning at all right now, because like you can put stupid videos out there, like stupid reels, and uh, you know those like fuck boy reels where you're like uh, like very weird and very sensual kind of reels right now. Like girls are like flaunting their curves, and then like guys are like, oh, see, my abs are like this. So those form of content, right? Like you cannot monetize them. Like all the content creators, let's say reels, a lot of them are making money because their content is good, not because they're famous. So uh, like before, when YouTube came, views mattered more than anything. Like if you get a lot of views, that means that you get sponsors, you get like some company sponsoring your video. But now that isn't the attribute anymore. Uh it's all about like your content, and like that's when you get like sponsors and all of that. So I think that's the only aspect that has changed, and that will change if this short lifespan, short attention span thing continues. But other than that, I don't see anything else like negatively with respect to short
But
form.
like you can't call content stupid just for existing, right? It has its own audiences, and
Yeah, but
that's what
what's the
like I
point? Like, what are you
that's
trying to do?
that's
Like, some reels I see, and I'm like, what are you trying to do here? Like, what exactly are you trying to do?
but still there are people watching it, no?
Yes, but
If
that doesn't mean that you can monetize over that. Like, you cannot make a living making stupid videos, is what I'm saying. Like that, like just hopping on the trend. Like, you can become famous, but you cannot monetize. Like, uh, there are a lot of the like TikTok people who make like such. You know, what's that dude's name? This like
Khabib something, no? Khalib
yeah,
something.
that like the black dude who shows uh like people who make a lot of effort in doing simple tasks, and then he like it's a satire, right? He's a millionaire right now, and his content is funny. Like he puts effort in making it, and also like Nirmal Pillai, right? Like his content is good. Like he just records in mobile phone. He doesn't even do it in a DSLR. Like, but like his content is that good. So I think that like people needs to put emphasis on the content, not on like the views and all of that. So yeah.
Which is why true content will stand out. Which is why movies directed by Tarantino, Nolan, they stand out over time versus like cheap flicks that were made. But like to say that cheap flicks shouldn't exist is like wrong. because they are finding their audiences. Like if 100 million people watch the dumb reel, it's still like 100 million people watching it. So you should respect their time and opinions. Like it's fine for stuff like that to exist. But yeah, in general, yeah, you should put effort and like be conscious about what you're making and what you're consuming as well. So like if you don't like such reels, just don't consume them. That's all.
Yeah. You know what I want to end this podcast on? I want to end on a note that I want to be on your podcast soon. So, ladies and gentlemen, Vaishakh Dutt,
Uh,
hopefully he's going to have his podcast rolling soon. So,
I hope. I hope. Let's
yeah,
see. And
hopefully. And I'm
yeah,
just putting it on there so that you feel like you have a chip on your shoulder now.
yeah, like a pressure. It's
You know
like
what? Like, you are like any conversation that we both have has always been constructive, and like I like being associated with you because of the type of discussions that we have. It's always like growth minded, and it is like it makes sense for you to have your podcast. So
I
yo,
hope so. Let's see if I do it. And regarding this podcast so far, like it's been such a fun thing to talk about. And like it's also fun because we ended up talking about stuff which we had never planned about. We ended up saying stuff which I didn't even know. Like when I spoke about the opinions things and stuff, like I thought like it forced me to think what my thoughts regarding this topic were
hmm,
and how could I phrase it, right? So like I thought about it, and like when you see that side of yourself coming into play, it's nice. It's basically we are forcing ourselves to be vocal on a public domain. Like we're seeing what our thoughts are, and it's interesting and it's always fun to do this. And for sure we will be different people when we see this again in the future, and you'll be like,
so
oh shit,
please
the why
don't
did I
hold
say?
us accountable for our
Yeah,
opinions because they're
don't
bound to change.
we should be accountable. It's just that like we should we should be accountable to what we say, because otherwise everybody will say something and like, nothing, I'm not accountable.
Yeah,
But
but you
yeah,
need to acknowledge our growth if we grow is what you're saying.
yeah,
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 that's nice.
you need to know that like, yeah, we there is always room for improvement for a person is what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
and
it's fun. We
for
spoke
all
about a
the
lot, and yeah.
for all the people out there, please get a Vaishak in your life. It's like when I say Vaishak is like get friends who are very like growth minded is what I mean. I made a choice in my life few years back to associate myself with people who challenge me and who help me grow, and like you are a result of that, and so hopefully we get to do this again, man. Like
We will do this again, and like
yes.
very thankful, very sweet of you to speak of me that way. My mother would not agree. She thinks I'm a hopeless, useless fellow.
That's what. If your
Uh,
mom thinks you're good, that means something is wrong. Like if your mom thinks you're stupid, that means you're normal.
yeah, so I will show this to my mom, and hopefully that will change her opinion about me. But
Yeah.
all good and fun, and like great job on coming so far. And
Thank
yeah,
you
we
so
spoke
much.
about so much of your growth, and is like evident in whatever you have done. And this podcast will be good because people will see the actual work that was put in behind, and like how you work as a person. And I hope I did a good job as a
You.
temporary host.
Thank you so much, Vaishak. Like, one of the reason is that you made me like acknowledge the progress, and that has been very like, very emotional and very like revelating.
Revelating.
Yeah. To know what that word means, please check Bisibelebois' first podcast. So yeah, it's been very like you taking efforts to make this 25th episode special. It means a lot to me, and thank you so much for doing it, Vaishak. And I'm sure like you'll
No
be
stress.
back again. So let's chill
Yeah.
again some other time.
Golden Jubilee coming
Yeah.
soon.
Yeah. Bye bye, ladies and gentlemen. Vaishak, say
Take care.
Vaishak, say bye. Your name is so tricky, man.
Take care, everybody.
This podcast is now recorded on video as well as audio. If you want to see my beautiful face, you can come to YouTube if you want to hear my beautiful voice, you can check it out on Spotify, Jio7 and Ghana.
A Sankarshan Joshi trip.